Welcome to the Magnum Report. I'm your host, Mark Magnum, and the topic for today is how long can this last? How long can this hot streak with WWE last? Now let's get right into it. Back around 2019, WWE was in a bad place, cold spot. A lot of the angles they were doing were not good, and just some of the product they were putting on television was just awful to watch. And this was also the same time when AEW was starting, and there was a shift, a changing of the guard in some ways, because when AEW started, it was that new thing, it was that fresh thing, it was that thing that since 2001 when WCW closed, the fans really needed badly, was just that competition. And I know there's going to be people saying there was Ring of Honor and there was TNA back in the day, and yes, they were going on, and both still are going on to this day, but let's be honest, nobody really watched either, and it was just WWE. Now we had, back in 2019, AEW come in, just that shot of adrenaline that the whole wrestling industry needed. And then the Vince scandals come in, and that just further made everything cold. And with Vince coming in and coming back out, people were still wishy-washy, and the goodwill was still with AEW. Then finally, after the second go-around of Vince coming back and everything, he finally quits again with all the scandals and all the darkness that he brought to that company. Then finally, Triple H takes over completely. Nobody in the background trying to screw him up. Not Vince kind of changing plans after Triple H just plotted stuff. No, this is finally Triple H in control. And then the goodwill shifted from AEW back to WWE. Now we've got this point where for the last I want to say almost 3 years now, WWE just keeps climbing. It keeps going higher. It keeps going farther. It keeps breaking records. It keeps doing things that 5 years ago, I don't think any of us would have thought WWE was going to be doing right now. And just to see how all this has changed. But the question was, how long can this last? And I've got 4 points to point out why I think they could run out of steam sooner than later. Hey guys, let me holler at you for a minute. Over 93% of this audience is not subscribed to this channel. So if you are a part of that 93%, please take the time to subscribe to this channel. It's greatly appreciated. Now, back to whatever it was I was talking about. And my first one is bad booking. And right now, I know there's a lot of people that are not too big on Triple H right now. I think what he's doing is all right. There's my complaints with the women's division and some of the tag team division on the men's side of things. I have my gripes, but for the most part, he is making stars. He is doing stuff. He is making things interesting and worth watching. And obviously, when ticket prices are $150 or whatever it is, I mean, they're coming to Cincinnati here soon where I live, and I was looking to take my kids down there to go. And I remember a time when it was $20 to go, and now it's $50 for one ticket. So things have changed, and people are paying for that. So that's a lot of WWE staying power, and that speaks to how good they are right now. That tickets are, over the top, enormously huge, and people are still paying for it. But I think bad booking and just not listening to the audience, even though it seems like Triple H is, but he could jump the shark and miss something, or make the bloodline angle go too long, which I think we've gotten as far as we need to go with the bloodline without telling a couple stories like Roman versus Rock or something like that. But as long as Triple H can stay with his booking, they'll be all right. But speaking of Triple H, my second point, I think, would be if Triple H steps down due to health reasons. Now, this could be a very important one, because just several years back, when Triple H was still running Black and Gold, he had a little heart issue and had surgery, and he's obviously recovered since, but that took him out for a while. And he never did get a chance to properly retire. He's one of those guys that never got that. So that's one thing that is, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Triple H in ring as a wrestler, I still feel for him in that way, that he never got to retire the way he wanted to. So there's that. But with his health problems, is that something that later on could rear its head, maybe a year, maybe 2 years from now, where just the stress of him having to run 2 shows, plus now they're going to be doing Evolve on Tubi, plus you got NXT that he still has a hand in. So, I mean, he's got so many plates. He's juggling so many balls right now that can the stress finally just get to Triple H to where maybe he has to step down and somebody else takes over, which goes into my next point, and I think would be the absolute worst timeline is somehow Vince McMahon comes back. Now, I don't think anybody thinks that's going to happen, and Lord knows I do not want that shit to happen, to see Vince McMahon take back control, because the product, you can just see the drastic difference between all the years, and somebody from my perspective that's been watching WWE for 40 years and just seeing the way it was produced and the way it was done, and it was good for a while, don't get me wrong, but the last maybe 15 years, 10 years of Vince McMahon running it and just running it into the ground to the point where it just gotten stale, and we gotten to that point where he wanted to just solely push John Cena, and then he got to the point where he just solely wanted to push Roman Reigns, to where people just got tired of it. And like I said, with AEW coming in, that was the shot in the arm that the wrestling industry needed. But then the changing of the guard, Triple H, but if he drops out for health reasons and somehow Vince comes back, or they just bring him back just because one of his cases has been dismissed, that's, like I said, the absolute worst timeline, and that's something that I don't think anybody wants to see. And I think if that happened, that could definitely kill this hot streak that WWE's on. Now, I've spoken about AEW in this, and I'm going to speak about them again. And I know there's going to be people that are going to say I'm AEW hating. When I say this, I do not want this to happen. I'm just saying this for the sake of argument. But what if after the rights deal stops, what if AEW closed down? And then we're back in the situation we were in for the people that were alive during that time back in 2001 when WCW closed down. And don't get me wrong, when WWE bought WCW, and WWE was still hot, but throughout the years, they just slowly just kept going down in the ratings, to where they got down into the twos, and now they're at about the 1.8, 1.9, whatever it is now, almost 2 million people that probably watch, and that's not even figuring in the Netflix numbers and stuff like that. But I'm just talking about on a typical night on SmackDown, it's about 1.8, 1.6, 1.4, 1.9, whatever it gets. It's hovering around that 1.5 to 2 million range. But there was a time when they were getting way more than that, and the product got stale. But right now with Triple H running it, it's a good thing. But if AEW closes, and if all the other scenarios I talked about where Triple H leaves or Vince McMahon comes back, and this is the only scenario, the AEW closing scenario, I think that could hurt business, because Triple H is not going to be able to sign everybody. And then there's no competition. There's nobody to feed off of. There's nothing to make you guys do better than what you've been doing. And I think that could be it. I don't think the AEW is going to close down. CM Punk said it himself. AEW will exist for as long as Tony Khan wants it to. So I don't think it's going to happen. But these are just some of the possibilities that I came up with, or that could possibly happen down the line. And maybe I say 2 to 3 years. But my final thoughts on this is that they can't stay hot forever. And there's going to be finally a cool-off period, whether they keep the belt on Cody too long or whatever it is. They're not going to stay hot forever. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. What do you think it's going to take for WWE to stop being so hot? Let me know in the comments. This has been another edition of the Magnum Report. Hey.